Guys, welcome to my channel. We are reading A Dog's Journey by W. Bruce Cameron. We are on chapter 15, and here we go. Chapter 15. I had been in places like this before. In fact, it was little like where CJ and I went to play with Andy and Luke, except there were far more dogs, and the ceiling was low, and there was no big area for people to sit in chairs. Just crammed aisles filling with dog cages. I was put in a cage with a cement floor and only a few feet between the gate and the door to a doghouse. The doghouse had a piece of carpet in it that smelled of many dogs. Just as the air around me smelled of dogs, I was filled with the constant sound of barking. When the woman came with water or food, I rushed to the gate, wagging, hoping she would let me out. I wanted to run, to play, to have people pet me. The woman was nice, but she would not let me out. Most of the other dogs also rushed to their gates. When the woman was nearby, a lot of them barked, and some of them sat quietly, being as good as they knew how. The woman did not let them out. I did not understand what was happening or why I was in this place of barking dogs. I missed CJ so much, I found myself pacing, whimpering a little. And then I'd go into the doghouse and lie on the small piece of carpet. But I wouldn't sleep. The barking that assaulted my ears was full of fear, with some anger, some pain, some sadness. When I barked, my voice carried with it my heartbreak and my plea to be let out of this place. At night, most of the dogs quietly lie down, but then one of them would start barking, often a brown and black dog in the kennel next to mine, tall and thin with no tail, and that would stir up the other dogs, and pretty soon we'd all be barking again. It was very difficult to sleep under such circumstances. I pictured myself lying at the foot of CJ's bed. Sometimes in the night, I would get too hot and jump down on the floor. But now, missing her so much, I wanted to be lying on that bed, no matter how hot it was. I yearned for the touch of her hands on my fur, and the familiar and wonderful scent of her skin. The next morning, I was let out of the cage and taken down the hallway and put on a table just like at the vet's. A man and a woman petted me, and the man looked in my ears. The woman took a stick and held it near my head, but the man had his hands on both sides of my face, so I couldn't get a good look at to see if it was a toy. I got a hit, a woman said. I knew she'd be chipped, the man said. I was returned to my cage. I was so disappointed I could barely summon the energy to go back and lie down on the carpet. I chewed a little on the doghouse, but even that didn't make me feel better. I sighed, lying down with a groan. A few hours later, a man came back. "Hello, Molly," he said to me. I sat up and wagged, loving to hear my name. He slipped a rope around my neck. "Come on, girl. Someone's here to see you." I smelled CJ the second the man opened the door, and at the end of the hall, "Molly," she called. I dashed up to her, and she fell to her knees and put her arms around me. I kissed her face and her ear and ran around and around her, the rope trailing behind me and getting all tangled. I gave voice to my relief, crying and crying. She laughed. "Good dog, Molly. You sit now." It was hard to sit, but I knew I needed to be a good dog. I sat, wagging my tail, while my girl stood and talked to the man. "I've been so worried," she said. "I think she got out of the gate when the man came over to shovel the walk after that big snow we had." Back down the hall, the tall black and brown dog started barking, and everyone joined in. I hoped their people would come take them home soon, too. The woman who dropped her off said she was running down the street. That's not like Molly. How much is the total? $60. I wagged at hearing my name. CJ reached down to pet me. Wait, the woman said. Some rich lady, the man said. Rich? Well, you know, she had a new Cadillac, dressed expensively, nice hair, lots of perfume, blonde hair, yeah? CJ drew in a breath. She was looking for something in her purse. I watched attentively because she often kept cookies in there. Look, was this her? CJ leaned over the counter. I don't think so. I don't think I should say. The woman in the picture is my mother. What? Yeah. Your mother dropped off your dog without telling you? Yeah. There was silence. CJ was both angry and sad. I'm sorry, the man said. Yeah. I was put in front seat for the air ride. I missed you so much, Molly. I was so scared something was going to happen to you, CJ said. She held me to her, and I licked her face. Oh, Molly, Molly, she whispered. You silly snoodle-knotted poodle. She felt sad, even though we were back together. I'm so sorry. I didn't know she'd do something like this. Though there were many interesting things to see out the window. I looked at CJ and licked her hand and put my head in her lap, just like I used to do when I was a little puppy. It felt so good to be near her. I slipped into a quick and exhausted sleep. I sat up when the car slowed and turned sharply, filling with familiar scents. We were back home. The car became quiet and CJ reached for me, holding my head in both hands. It's not safe for you here, Molly. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't trust Gloria not to hurt you. I'd die if anything happened to you, Molly. I wagged a little. CJ let me out of the car and I stepped through the melting snow to the front door. It felt so good to be home. CJ opened the door and walked in and then gasped, and her fear rising in her in a flash. Shane! CJ's friend Shane was sitting in the living room. He stood, but I didn't go over to him. I didn't wag my tail. There was something wrong with him being here alone in our house. Hi, CJ. How do you get in? Shane went down on one knee and clapped his hands. Hi, Molly. He smelt like smoke. I remained by CJ's side. CJ said, How did you get in? I snuck a rake up through the dog's door and turned the deadbolt. He said, laughing, What are you doing here? How come you never call me back? You have to get out of here right now. You can't come in my house. CJ was angry. I watched her carefully, wondering what was going on. You left me no choice. You'd been completely ignoring me. Yes, that's what people do when they break up. Shane, they stop talking to each other. You can look it up. Okay. If I smoke in here, no, I need you to leave. Well, I'm not leaving until we talk this thing out. What thing, Shane? CJ took a deep breath. You called me like 30 times in a row at 2 a.m. I did? Shane laughed. I heard the car pulling into the driveway and went to the window to see who it was. The car door opened and it was Rocky. Trent got out too. Rocky ran over to lift his leg on the tree. Somebody's here, CJ said. Should I wait upstairs? What? Are you crazy? I want you to leave. There was a light knock on the door. I ran over to it, and I put my nose to the crack, sniffing. Rocky was on the other side, doing exactly the same thing. CJ crossed over and opened the door. You found her, Trent said. Then he stopped. Hey, Trent, Shane said. Rocky and I were sniffing each other. I jumped up joyously, grabbed a fold of skin on the back of his neck, and yanked on it. Sorry, maybe I should come back at a different time, Trent said. No, CJ said. Yeah, we're in the middle of something kind of personal, Shane said. No, you were in the middle of leaving, CJ said. CJ, we need to talk, Shane said. Sounds like she wants you to leave, Trent said. Rocky stopped moving. In a bit of his face, he was watching Trent, his muscles rock hard and still. Maybe I don't want to leave, Shane said loudly. I could feel the anger in Trent's then. CJ reached out and put a hand on his wrist. Rocky's ears were up, and the fur was rising on the back of his neck. It occurred to me at that moment that Rocky's purpose was to love and protect Trent, just as mine was to love and take care of CJ. Shane, CJ said. Go. I will see you tomorrow. Shane was staring at Trent. Shane, CJ said more loudly. Shane blinked and then looked at her. What? I'll see you tomorrow out where you skateboard, okay? After school. Shane stood there for a moment, then nodded. He picked up his coat and slugged it over his shoulder as he left, as he pushed past Trent, who continued to stare at him until he was out the door. You're going to see him tomorrow? Trent asked. He absently petted Rocky on the head. I licked Rocky's mouth. No, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. What do you mean? Molly and I are leaving today, this afternoon. We're going to California. CJ went to the stairs and headed up to her room, and Trent, Rocky, and I followed. What are you talking about? Trent asked. CJ went to the closet, pulled out a suitcase. I knew that suitcase. When CJ left me at Rocky's house for days and days, she had pulled it out of the closet. Rocky was ready to play again. But seeing that suitcase made me anxious, and I stuck close to CJ's feet as she began opening things and pulling out her clothes and putting them inside it. Molly didn't run off. Gloria dumped her at the animal control. What? I showed the guy at the shelter her picture. Can you believe it? Yeah, well, I'd believe just about anything about your mother. So that's it? We're going to California? We'll live on the beach until I get a job? And then when I'm 21, I'll get my dad's trust and I'll go to college. You're not thinking this through, CJ. College? You haven't finished high school. I'll get my GED or I'll go to school out there. I don't know. I'll go with you, Trent said. Oh, sure, that'll work. You can't go live on a beach. What are you thinking? CJ didn't answer, but could feel her getting angry. Trent watched her for a few minutes. What about the other things? He finally asked quietly. CJ stopped and looked at him. What do you mean? The eating. CJ stared at him, thinking a deep breath. God, Trent, every single day of my life I wake up with a little voice in my head asking, what am I going to eat that day? I can't have your voice in my head, too. I just can't. Trent looked down at the floor. He seemed sad. Rocky went over to nuzzle him. Sorry, he said. CJ pulled out another suitcase and put it on the bed. I need to get out of here before Gloria sees I got Molly back. Hey, let me give you what money I have on me. You don't have to do that, Trent. I know that. Here. I yawned anxiously. I loved being with Rocky and Trent, but not if CJ was going to take the suitcases and go somewhere without me. You're my best friend in the world, Trent, CJ said softly. They hugged each other. I don't know what I'd do without you and Molly. There was a loud bang, and I recognized as the sound of the front door had been shut. Clarity? Clarity. Gloria's voice sang out. Is that Trent's car, CJ? And Trent stared at each other. Yes, CJ called. Her voice stank to whisper. Can you keep Molly quiet? I wagged. Yes, Trent said. He knelt in front of me, stroking my ears. Molly, shh, he said very softly. I wagged. Rocky, jealous, shoved his face in front of mine. CJ went out to the hallway and leaned over the railing. I started to follow, but Trent gently held me back. I strained, feeling a whimper building inside me. I didn't want to let CJ get even 2 feet away from me, not with those suitcases out. No, Trent said to me with his voice muted. Stay still, Molly. Honey, Gitsby is taking me to the movies and then out to late dinner, so don't wait up for me. Gitsby, CJ said. Her voice sounded flat with anger. No, don't start with me, Clarity June. I had put all that unpleasantness behind me, and I expect you to do the same. Goodbye, Gloria. What's that supposed to mean? What do you say it like that? I couldn't help it. I whined a little, shuffling my feet. What was that? Gloria asked. CJ turned to look at me. I whispered again, straining to get her. That's Rocky. Trent brought him over to see me. He knows I'm just heartbroken about Molly. Do we have to be overrun with dogs all the time? No, Gloria. It won't happen again. Thank you. Good night, CJ. Goodbye. CJ came back into the room and shut her door. I bounded to her, licking her face. Molly, I was 4 feet away from you, you crazy dog. Hey, you know what you'd be if you were a cocker spaniel poodle? You'd be a cocker doodle doo dog. Yes, you would. CJ kissed me on the face. Trent carried the suitcases down the stairs and put them in the back of the car while I staked calm to the front seat. Rocky came over to sniff me, but didn't try to get in with me, which I wouldn't have allowed anyway. Trent seemed sad when he gave me a hug. I licked his face. I knew I'd see him and Rocky in a day or two. Trent leaned in front window, which CJ lowered after she got into the car. She put my window down too, so I could breathe in the cold air. You know where you're going? He asked. I put into my phone. CJ said, we'll be fine, Trent. Call me. Well, I mean, won't she be able to trace my phone calls? Right. She'll just ring up her contacts at the FBI. CJ laughed. Trent hugged her through the window. You be a good dog, Molly, he said to me. I wagged at being a good dog. Here we go, Molly, CJ said. Alright, guys. And that is the end of chapter 15. I will see you guys in chapter 16 in the next video. Have a good day, guys.